Okay, bro, for me, this is going to be really a special episode because we're going to talk about strong women, right? Iron ladies of Philippine politics. We had a number of episodes about, toxic masculinity-ish people, or like that's the accusation. But this one, we're going to talk about let's say, 5 strong women of Philippine Republic nowadays across the political spectrum. Maybe we'll start first with Risa because recently she was in, I think, California. We can talk about her, but we're also going to talk about SARA, Madame Arroyo, former President Tita Arroyo, maybe Liza Araneta, etc. So, and Amy Marcos, right? So, like, these are the 5 most prominent women. I mean, Lenny obviously is there. But we had separate episode on Lenny. So I think aside from Lenny, the 5 other, of influential women that I think we should talk about today. Ito yung mga yan. Let's start first with Lisa, bro. She was recently in the US, right? I saw some of her picture also in New York, Independence Day. Kamusta yung mga speeches niya? Did you attend her events or whatever?
I attended her speech dito sa Berkeley. The Bay Area was her last stop, and
so she talked at Berkeley. Interesting.
Not in the university, in the city, but they weren't able to get her a space sa university. Hopefully next visit niya, mahanapan ko na siya ng venue to speak in the university. So it was great because it was just a 10-minute drive from where I was, and then I was able to join the dinner for her and talk to her a little bit. I am not so comfortable talking about Risa kasi biased talaga ako. I mean, I actually really like Risa, and Risa, I would consider Risa a real friend na may pinagsamahan na.
Hey, so, I mean, at least you're being transparent about it. Sure.
So I'm extremly biased about this woman. I have nothing but love for this person, and I think she's just the finest politician.
Why? Why, bro? Can you explain why?
Kasi nag-aaral si Risa and she's always asking you for reading, and lagi siyang ganyan when she speaks to friends, she's always like, oh, you reference something, can you give a reading? So for example, one of the things I liked in her speech was she talked, for example, and this is one thing that like politicians don't talk about. She said, for example, na ang hina na ng bargaining. One of the problems we have in the Philippines, big economic problems we have now, is pababa yung bargaining power ng labor dahil sa gig work, dahil mahirap mag-union sa service sector jobs, right? So what do we do about the negotiating power of labor? That's not something you normally, it's so refreshing, pero kay Risa normal lang yung ganyan. And then we had a conversation about, Adam Tooze. I said, Adam Tooze says that the negotiating power of labor is very important during highly inflationary times, because highly inflationary times is when you need to be able to negotiate your salaries up, diba? So Argentina, for example, had that, which is why they were able to, labor was kinda, not completely able to survive some of the depreciations of the 1990s, diba? And she's like, you have to give me a reading for that, so I need to give her a reading for that, right?
So she's wonky. She's wonky.
That's what you're saying. She's wonky, and then because she's wonky, there's a kind of hard-nosed realism to her. So for example, isa pang part na I loved about the speech was, problema sa opposition, a lot of the opposition still think na hindi pwedeng nanalo si Marcos without cheating, di ba? So Risa's major point was this. She said, I know a lot of you are still angry about the election, and if there are complaints about election irregularity, of course we will listen to these complaints, and we will look at these complaints, and we will take them seriously. And as a senator, I promise to give a platform to people who find irregularities. However, the broader picture here is we have to accept that we lost, diba? That we did not. Then she said, real talk, we did not live up. Maganda sa akin, we did not live up to the promise of EDSA. And then somebody said, so Senator EDSA was a failure. And he said, no, EDSA is not a failure. The failure is that we did not live up to the legacy of an event that was not a failure. So just that kind of nuance from an opposition senator. Iba lang talaga. Risa, I think, just operates on a different
level. Impressive. Very impressive.
On a different level as compared to other senators, and I would say she's the opposition leader because she operates at a different level even when you compare her with other opposition leaders, right? She's ibang level lang talaga si Senator Hontiveros.
I agree with you because honestly I was like looking at the sole no votes that came from Risa, and one of them was on RCEP, right? And literally in her press release she would cite the academic literature and question the econometric studies and models. And she would say, this model that was used by NEDA is questionable according to this. I was like, that's interesting. Like, it's super wonky. It's almost like geeky, right? Geeky level, no, of approaching it. And I like it because it's modernizing public policy in the Philippines, because that's the problem. Public policy in the Philippines, I mean, look at all the consultants, apparatchiks, operators. It's all about the jingle, right? Matalino ka sa politika kung magaling ka gumawa ng jingle. Matalino ka sa politika kung pwede kang gumawa ng mga PR na, nakakakuha ng headlines. She doesn't go down that road. She's going down almost like Sweden model, right? Which is very brave. And she won. I mean, she was re-elected, because if you question Marcos winning, you're also questioning the same elections that got Risa back. So I'm glad to see that she gave a real talk. Yeah.
The first openly socialist senator since Isabelo de los Reyes. Yeah. Parang grabe rin, parang
who for me, bro, is the greatest Ilustrado. I think I also had this discussion with
kasi
No, I mean, bro, look at his work about yung anthropological work niya. Look at it. Na insecure si Rizal noon. I mean, the argument of Benedict Anderson was that Rizal's true intellectual rival was Isabel de los Reyes. And the thing with Isabel de los Reyes, Navalny, like he organized under Americans, he organized socialist movements in the Philippines and the left. I mean, I'm just saying, he ticks all the boxes for me. I think Isabel de los Reyes was the greatest. I'm sorry to say it, but I'll be honest. He lived longer than most of them, okay? But that's not his fault, and he did a lot while he was around. So I don't know. I mean, anyway, going back, that's a good point you said, no sense. But is Risa a socialist? I mean, we want to make sure she doesn't get red tie. I mean, for me, she's a social democrat-ish, right?
Yeah. I mean, yung Akbayan position naman is that well, she represents Akbayan. She's a member of the Akbayan party, and Akbayan styles itself as a democratic socialist party, right? So she does identify with that term, democratic socialist, social democrat, and she's happy. I think Risa is happy to accept both terms. And in a sense, parang thin naman yung distinction between democratic socialist and social democrat. In many ways, it's a question of place, diba?
Yeah, it's a label, American versus European thing. Yeah, you're right.
Democratic socialist is mostly used in the US. Having said that, all socialist international parties, Second International, including initially Lenin's party, were all called social democratic parties. So talagang thin naman yung distinction.
You're right. I agree with you.
From within the Philippine left, though, Risa definitely comes from what in the 1970s, 1980s would be called social democracy, which was close to ideas of Christian democracy. Kasi Atenista yan eh. So definitely, she didn't really drink from the well of Maoism the way a lot of her comrades.
She's not Maoist, Stalinist, all that, whatever. Yeah.
Really, her initial exposure was she drank from the well of Christian social teaching, or some people would call liberation theology. So she's actually very Atenista. She represents, I think, as an Atenean myself, she represents the best of Ateneo. Because something really happened to Ateneo.
Oh yeah, you're both Ateneo. Yeah.
Something really happened in Ateneo in the 70s eh. So prior to that, ang konyo-konyo ng Ateneo at saka may Arneo.
Wait, prior to that, ang konyo ng Ateneo, what do you mean? Are you suggesting it's not konyo?
May mga konyo kami, but we're not as konyo as Dirk Gordon and Mike Arroyo, diba?
That's it. Dirk Gordon.
I would say yung social conscience ng Ateneo, it's like, I always say like it's a post Dick Gordon thing eh. So it's a before and after Dick Gordon. So after Dick Gordon, meron na yung social.
Meron palang ano yan eh.
Tapos I must say nagbago rin yung accent kasi si Dirk Gordon has an Arneo accent, right? I have an Ateneo accent.
Yes, that's it, bro. The Arneo. All right.
Arneo, we have the Ateneo.
I know.
Ateneo.
Hey, bro. I mean, all love that today. It's the one employer that saw both of us in the same under the same roof. So all respect. So to Ateneo, right? Okay.
No, she's that Ateneo. She's the perfect representation, I think, of an ideal graduate from our university. That is an Ateneo graduate.
I see. Okay. All right. Okay. I get it. You're a fanboy. I get it. No, I'm just kidding. You think she can? You think she can be a model for the next generation of? Because, well, this person. We had a podcast with Ronald Llamas, the former political affairs secretary of Aquino, not long ago, and we were discussing about PITA. Apparently, it's not PITA. PITA of Thai. Yeah,
Thailand.
future forward, move forward, whatever, all of that stuff. And Ronald Llamas' argument was like, look at it, Lenny, Risa, they get 40, 15, 16 million votes. That could be enough to elect a president in normal times, right? And it looks like 2022 was an outlier of 60%-ish, right? I think the future is more, again, 30, 40%-ish for a president. So like, sana ma-mobilize yan. And my sense is, Riza's successful re-election, right? Not probably super successful enough re-election, shows that maybe she knows something about how to make woke, not broke, but woke successful, right? In the Philippine context. Because I see a lot of defeatism, a lot of denialism. I mean, they're essentially the same thing to me. And I think, but there's the Risa example. Oh, my suspicion is the reason why a lot of people are not supporting Risa is because her victory goes, oh man, no. Like she's a cognitive dissonance, right? Because if you say the election was totally a scam, but Risa won, eh? So how does that work?
Yeah, I know exactly.
I realized that suddenly, oh nga, no, she creates cognitive dissonance. I'm not sure even these people are aware of it, but I think deep inside they kind of feel uncomfortable with the Riza victory because, right? You know, like the implication is pretty.
So si Risa, 'di ba? Third time sa charm siya, 'di ba? May dalawang campaign before na natalo siya before siya nanalo ng senador, 'di ba? So naalala ko yung first campaign, pakinggan yung theme song, Magandang Laban, 'di ba? Risa Hontiveros, magandang laban, yun yung first. 13 ata yun, 14, almost there. Right? So
yeah, like 16, 13, something like that. Hindi naman siya malayo, 'di ba? Within the range more or less siya. Alam ko within the range siya.
Kailan ba yung Magandang Laban? Kailan ba tumakbo yung Magandang Laban? Tapos yung next one was kasagsagan ng RH, Pro Moms yung line, Pro Moms. Yun yung pinaka natalo, and ang comment I think dun sa kampanya at that time, I mean tangentially involved ako sa campaign, so ang involved dun sa campaign was masyadong mataas, masyadong parang Chris Aquino yung Pro Moms, kasi ang ganda-ganda niya, tapos mukhang Chris Aquino, may aspirational element dun sa ano. And then yung campaign that finally won, and I think this is telling, was she became the healthcare candidate. Candidate.
Right.
So ito yung classic example of how do you buy, yung lagi yung sinasabi, the story Tony Judd, how do you bind people to liberal democratic institutions? Well, you make those liberal democratic institutions the same institutions that give them healthcare, give them education. And yun yung naging winning formula with Risa.
That's a good analysis.
Even in this last election, healthcare ang nakapronta kay Risa. Kasi for example, may mga mobile health, tawagin nyo na kaming trapo, na nag-mobile health kami, sobrang involved ako. Hindi naman ako sobrang attached ako sa campaign. May mga mobile health clinics na prinomote si Risa, 'di ba? So, I guess, binabrand mo na Risa Hontiveros 'yon, right? But serbisyo 'yun right? So, totoong serbisyo 'yun healthcare 'yun. Right. And what that does is that allows you to imagine the kind of social democratic world that she is advocating for, because ayan concreto healthcare. So she's the healthcare candidate. And I mean that yung healthcare, of course, it transcends itong issue ng opposition or Marcos or Duterte.
Yeah. Everyone. It's a universal resonant issue. Has there been a proper study of Riza's political career as a kind of a reflection of what works and doesn't work for a progressive candidate? I think that, like, I saw a lot of Jesse Robredo studies, Naga model, but parang the Riza case is, that's the irony. Riza herself is very wonky, but her success case has not been studied enough by wonks. Like, parang when I was thinking about it, parang shallow ng mga sinulat ko about her success compared to like what I could have written had I given more attention to it. And I'm just suddenly wondering, like, kamusta ang RRL on the Risa Hontiveros success beyond just Akbayan? I mean, I know there are studies about Akbayan, but the Risa success is interesting because she got elected during the Duterte and Marcos era, right?
And also, yes, important na hiwalay sa Akbayan yung study because lalo na ngayon, di ba? I mean, Risa is actually quite loyal to her party. That's another thing I like about her, na meron siyang element of party politics. But I think we should recognize that in the Philippines, she is Senator Hontiveros, that her brand is actually bigger than her party. That's unfortunate, di ba? That's unfortunate. Pero Pilipinas to individual brand ni Risa Hontiveros, mas mabigat yan dun sa branding ng partido niya, Akbayan. 'Di ba? Incidental na nga yung Akbayan eh. Ngayon, she's her own identity. She won't admit this in public. Of course, she's too much of a part. She's too loyal to the party to say this.
Which is
But she,
unprecedented.
yes,
Which is very not,
unfortunately,
yeah.
she's unfortunately dwarfed her party. So she has to be studied as an individual phenomenon.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, she has to be studied. Because the idea is that, is she just a sui generis, or is she actually could provide lessons for next generation of car? Like, because I can see Riza as a model for the next Pita. I mean, of course, Vico Soto comes to mind, but I'm sure Vico Soto is not the only one who could be, you know, our own version of Pita.
Disqualify pa yan si Pita.
Nah, even na yan, because that's Thailand, bro. But thankfully, we're not Thailand. We don't have Les Majes. We don't have a military crazy junta. So if PETA could do that in Thailand, you know what I'm saying? Why not us doing it in the Philippines, which is less worse than Thailand on so many levels? Do you get what I'm saying, right? So yun lang. At saka, PETA challenged the military conscription. He challenged Les Majes laws. He challenged the business class by talking about minimum wage. It's like, ang tapang nung bata. I mean, I won't say it's Navalny level, but for a Ferrari driving anak ng mayaman konyo ng Thailand, in fairness to Pita, I mean, he shows that konyos can be matapang and all. Like, it's very impressive. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So I was just saying, Riza could be a kind of a interesting case study, and I feel it's not studied enough because all the opposition talks about is Lenny. And, you know, due respect to Lenny, and a lot of them just want to cancel Vico Soto. Okay, let's talk about Riza then. But anyway, I think I've been beating that horse too much, or not maybe enough. But now let's talk about the other Iron Ladies. Baka ma-red tag tayo. Bago tayo mag-red tag, pag-usapan naman natin si Sara all. What is your understanding of the whole drama that is happening right now? Because the one angle I focus on, which I think has not been paid enough attention, is the new Cold War angle, which is a lot of fight we're seeing inside of Congress right now have something to do in one way or another with the US-China competition. And that some of the China-friendly elements, parang they gave up Malacanang kay Bongbong na yan. Senado, well, may sariling pag-iisip. Pero baka if makuha nating Speaker of the House, we can have some sort of a, you know what I'm saying, a kind of a, a launching pad to challenge some of the foreign policy position of the president in the U.S. So that's my understanding from the intel and you know, the sources.
Bro, sa tingin nila kaya nilang makuha yung house. Ganun sila ka-confident sa
lakas. So this is where I'm going to talk more, right? Because I know you talked a lot. That's why I pushed you a lot of reasons. Let me just reciprocate. No, my sense is that's where you see they overreached. That they're a little bit out of touch with reality. That they're underestimating both Bongbong but also Martin Romualdez. You think Martin Romualdez was just sitting on his hand?
They're estimating the history of that chamber, right?
Yeah.
The history of that, sabi nga ni Sergio Osmeña, ever since the time of my lolo, meaning Sergio Osmeña, the first Speaker of the House, the Speaker of the House has been an appointed position, right? It has been it's
by
been
the president. No
comment.
Hey, bro, we have separation of powers, checks and balances, you know? I mean, just look at it.
To that extent din, di ba? Sabi niya, in the Philippines, we have to acknowledge that the house is really there for something like that. The house is
at the pleasure of the president. The house is at the pleasure.
And the Senate is the check and balance, right? And this is very interesting for. Of course, she can, like, parang who has greater knowledge than her to say this, right? She has been a president, she has been a Speaker of the House, and she's been a senator. She understands the three institutions intimately. So for her to say that, I'm
senator and VP also, like,
I'm likely to believe her.
She did it all. I mean, like, Tita Roy is like, wow, consummate politician. But yun nga, as smart and wily and all of that she is, I mean, nag-overreach sila. Ang basa ko talaga overreach. And they're forgetting the fact that, I mean, two things. First, yes, you can talk about historically Speaker of the House, the President, but this is their cousins, first cousins, very close. Very crucial yung role ni Martin Romualdez during election unity team. I don't know what Sarah wants to say about it. But more than that, literally, Martin was on the right side of the president. Most of the pictures, he goes abroad, right? All of these travels and he's going abroad. How many times did you see the Speaker of the House being so prominent in the front? So, solid sila. Solid yung sync nilang dalawa, di ba? I'm sure President Bongbong will say, well, it just happens that the Speaker of the House is interested in legislative executive coordination. Okay, fine, they can make that argument. But my point is like, this is where I realize two things. They're underestimating BBM and Martin. Number two, they're underestimating how much China is not liked in the Philippines and how much support there is for the US pivot of Marcos, right? So they're going against two major obstacles, and I felt they were really overreaching. If it's true, na talaga there was an attempt to go for the Speaker of the House. I mean, on the record, Arroyo denied that there's a coup. She said it's a suspicion, but she admitted that she wanted that position, obviously. And SARA talked about a condition during the unity, was the condition that Speaker of the House and then siya yung Defense Secretary. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, you connect the dots.
Meron nga, di ba, yung sabi ni Manolo, di ba, very early on, sinampal na kagad yan si GMA at si Sara dahil nga hindi nila nakuha yung gusto nila. And then, GMA said it, di ba? First few months pa lang ng Marcos administration.
She felt,
President Arroyo was disappointed na hindi siya naging speaker, right? She verbalized this, that she was actually disappointed, right? So yung ganong klaseng guhitan, napakalinaw na. And then, of course, may record naman talaga tong dalawang to of launching coups in the House of Representatives, di ba? Anong panahon ni
Alvarez! Alvarez says hi. Pantalion.
Nung panahon na yun, tatay mo pa rin yung presidente. Hindi mo baka close ka. Sabi mo na BFF mo yung presidente. That's what you think, right? Let's assume na BFF, hindi mo pa rin tatayon. Iba pa rin. The congressmen are not going to respond to you today the way they responded to you when the president was your father. I think
different dynamic. Yeah, exactly. I think sometimes people tend to mistake that it takes, multiple, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. Multiple things have to come together for power to happen. And sometimes when they're missing elements, it doesn't work the same way. It just, but feeling there's so much underestimation of BBM. That's why we're seeing what we're seeing, right? Because BBM is not your typical strongman style, neither like his father nor like Tatay. He's not like even Pinoy, right? Like there were times that Pinoy would go like this, right? But BBM is not even doing that. So I think that explains the over.
Pinoy, dali mong pikunin yun eh.
No, hindi ako nagsabi yan. I'm just saying.
Ewan ko lang kung ano yung si BBM, kung ano yung tolerance niya. But sometimes,
but that's the tolerance so far.
Si Pinoy, di ba? Parang pag napikon, may conviction, di ba? Baka walang ganun si Bongbong, di ba? But at the same time, kung napipikon ka rin, that also clouds your judgment. So being pikon is a good thing and a bad thing. I'm not saying this.
You're right. But so far, not being pikon is helping BBM a lot because it disarms the critics. It allows him to deodorize the whole, Marcos thing. Although let's see what happens with Maharlika and other issues. Although my sense is, speaking of Iron Ladies, Senator DeLima could be freed in the coming 6 months. I think she's the Iron Lady for me. I mean, no offense to everyone, but for me, Senator DeLima is like, that's it. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying, bro? You know what I'm saying? Number one, numero uno. It's not even a question, bro. I mean, it's like mic drop. I think she's the toughest woman of our era. God bless her.
This is to write DeLima into the history as the hero. So maybe in the short term, hindi siya mavivindicate because the political tide is against her. But I think in years to come, as historians do the work and show what she did for our country, starting as a crusading election lawyer and then as chair of the Commission
Human Rights Commission.
Yeah, and then even yung time na sinisiraan siya where she was Justice Secretary, I think she did a great job. And then as the conscience of the Philippine Senate, she is the Iron Lady.
Be conscious. Yep.
It's our job as people who are documenting these politics to make sure that the record is straight so that when historians look at this period, makikita nila yung sinulat natin at sinabi natin about DELIMA para pwedeng ayusin yung legacy niya.
This is the Navalny, right? Remember we were discussing about, Navalny, the Russian intelligentsia. I think she is to our, what I'm saying, Ilustrados. That's what I'm saying. No generation. Yep. That's my thing. I'm very proud. I mean, of course, we're talking about women, but if we can also talk about Walden Bellio, among others, who have been also fighting very tough fight. But we're sticking to so my sense is, my sense is her case will be resolved in the next 6 to 9 months, right? And for me, that could be the clincher. You think if she gets freed, which is more than 50% chance, again, this is Philippines, unfortunately, anything can happen. Yes.
sabi
You
mo
think it
more
will
than
split the opposition? You think it will split the opposition? Suddenly the others will say, see, BBM is our guy. The other side is the enemy. Like, what is your sense on this?
tell mo na, backtrack mo na. You think more than 50% chance?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this thing about her being denied bail is ano na lang, last ditch effort by some pro Duterte elements to just torture her on the way out.
Di ba may command from the Department of Justice na, huy, i-resolve niyo na yan, huwag niyo na i-drag ulit yan. And then my question dun sa objectivity ng judge na nag-deny ng bail because of yung brother's involvement, ganun. So, I don't know. I mean, if like the news is tightening around the anti-DELIMA people who were there, right? So, or at least suspected. So
ano lang, parang tama ba yung analysis na parang vestigial elements of vestigial DDS elements who know na eventually lalaya yan, pero
the final lashes of
parang na lang natin the way out, ganyan.
I mean, again, we could be overly optimistic about, but I'm saying ceteris paribus, if you look at the trend lines, especially if this fault line within the unit team deepens, that looks like the very very likely more than 50%. I won't say 90%, but clearly it's like 60-40 chance, right? For her, or at least for her to be granted bail in the next 6 to 9 months, which is not as good, but good enough, at least but that's my thing. And then you have this Maharlika issue and all other controversial issues about the Marcoses. This could be a divisive issue, right? This could be a very divisive issue, right?
Pero
for the opposition, I mean.
It's going to be difficult din naman for BBM to claim na lumaya si DELIMA dahil sa kanya. Ayaw din naman niyang gawin yun.
Yeah, it is own niya yan. Sabi niya, it's a justice process.
Sabi niya, tumakbo. Wala naman ako dyan. Ang line dyan, di ba, is completely predictable. Presidente ako, hindi naman ako judge eh. Di ba? Yun. Parang there's a separation
of powers. Yeah.
And then everybody's like, yeah, right. Yeah, right. But at least
you think that DDS will read it that way? Like, I don't think so. I don't think so. The fact that the Department of Justice was very firm that we need to resolve these issues, etc. They at least bothered to meet people from United Nations or whatever. They at least bothered to do something about the ICC issue, which is totally different from the third era. I think that could be quite a contentious issues in the coming.
Ano ba yung laro, Brad? Kasi itong reading ko, wala naman akong insider information, pero ang reading, yung insider, yung reading ko is si Bongbong will not rein in the Duterte people from tinkering with the case, but at the same time, he's not going to use the powers of his office to prevent DELIMA from being released. So, ang mangyayari dyan eventually is the merits of the case will win out, and the merits are she's innocent, right? Yun yung reading ko dito.
Didn't you see the echo of that? Isn't that what happened with the VP electoral case? Like, the president in Lima, and then the like, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying, like,
galing.
Remember, right? And then remember, if DELIMA
pero meron namang binigay dun sa isa. So, okay, yung VP case hindi in-entertain ni Digong, pero nilibing naman yung tatay sa libing ng mga bayani.
Sa una, that back in the day. Come on. That's like the first 6 months.
Hindi naman empty-handed si Digong kasi hindi pa naman tayo sumasali
na ICC. There will be consuelos. Don't worry. Galante si Kuya. May consuelo. Remember, there's still the ICC issue.
Mukhang protektado pa naman si Digong on the ICC issue.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. There's still the ICC issue. So kung may tatay burial thing, meron din ganitong So you know what I'm saying? Like if I'm gonna do the if everything follows, the algorithm, like this is a projection, right? But of course,
I like where your mind's going. I like this.
You know what I'm saying? I could be wrong, but you can see how things are connecting, right? Like, yeah. So that's the algorithm I saw, no? Again, there could be a code problem. There could be some virus in the code. Fine. That's why I'm saying I'm still more confident than 50%, no? In the next 6 to 9 months. Let's end on the IMEE Marcos, maybe the other part. Because some are saying, like now, the line of SARA is, no, si IMEE naman tumulong sa amin, di ba? But the argument right now is that at the end of the day, IMEE Marcos is a Marcos, right? So don't expect her, you know what I'm saying? No, we don't know much about the First Lady, so maybe next time we can have an episode. So I'm not gonna pretend I know about the First Lady, but we know there are dynamics there and all, but it looks, like IMEE Marcos, I think medyo mahirap yung situation ngayon, di ba? Kasi friends din sila. Right, diba? Yeah.
May tanong ako sa'yo, parang ano ba yan, ironclad ba yung relationship ni Sarah at saka ni IMEE? My sense is it's only ironclad kung walang ambisyon si IMEE maging presidente. Kasi kung nag-ambisyon na siya maging presidente, di collision course ka kaagad with Sarah.
No, but she could be
VP.
I mean, president, yeah, first or something like that, I don't know. Pero parang wala siyang, momentum nakita natin. Even for Senate, malabo na mag-top 5 siya. Suddenly. So I think she's kind of out of the question. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to underestimate her. I think she's a very, she's a consummate politician. She knows her time. I'm just saying, like, it's parang the Made in Malacanang thing gave an initial boost and then parang hindi na sustain. And then kaya nga, si Amy ngayon, she's just, she's just being professional and all of that. She's above the fray almost, right? So I don't know. Very interesting. Very interesting. So see, this is what I love about the Philippines. We have so many strong women leaders. Even if I don't agree with some, even if I agree with some, it's like, this is a country of many strong women leaders. Maybe they're the ilustrado now, right? Sila na yung bumabawi, no? Kasi puro mga walang kwenta tayo mga lalaki. So it's the women who are doing the good fight, no? Homage.
DELIMA especially talaga.
Yeah, DELIMA is the Navalny of the Philippines, I would say. Honestly, my argument, she and Navalny should have won the Nobel Peace Prize, but no offense to other people. Anyway, we can give her another prize later on. But yeah, that's really my stance. Leila, thank you so much. I'm glad that we talk more about Risa. I just realized that, yeah, we haven't analyzed enough Risa's journey to the exalted position she has right now, an exalted and very difficult, tricky position that she's going to have for the coming years. But you're right, Risa is not just opposition, right? Risa is kind of a brand on her own in a good sense. No, I mean, it's just, the person who's there to fight for the good ideas, regardless of party politics, as much as she's still steeped in the Akbayan philosophy and organizational tethers, if I can put it that way, right? Thank you so much, bro. I really appreciate it. It was fantastic. As always. That was good, bro. That was good. Like, ang dami akong notes dito. Wait lang.
Algorithms of Philippine politics.
Bro, di ba? Parang medyo nagigets ko na yung algorithm. Again, we could be wrong, etc. But I must say, I'm very confident in the analysis. Maybe not the prediction, but I think the analysis makes perfect sense. Not the prediction, but I think it's a very reasonable analysis, right? Sorry, I just have to write it down before kung ano nang papasok. Thank you so much, bro. And talk to you soon. God bless.
Okay, see ya.
Enjoy your day.